They knew. For decades, ExxonMobil's own scientists warned them. Burning fossil fuels would warm the planet, melt the ice caps, flood cities, and destabilize life as we know it. But they ignored it all. They silenced critics, they profited from war, they've been accused of human rights abuses, and through it all, they've remained one of the most powerful corporations on Earth. This is the story of ExxonMobil, a company that's almost broken the world, and it's proof that greed doesn't just survive in capitalism, it thrives. To understand ExxonMobil, you have to go back to where it all began, the late 1800s. Standard Oil, run by John D. Rockefeller, wasn't just a company, it was the oil industry. At its peak, it controlled about 90% of US oil production. The US government eventually called it what it was, a monopoly. And in 1911, the Supreme Court split it into 34 smaller companies. Two of them would become Exxon and Mobil, but splitting them up didn't change the game, it just created more players with the same DNA. The culture of domination, price control, and aggressive expansion didn't disappear. In fact, in 1999, Exxon and Mobil merged to form the largest publicly traded oil company in the world. Almost immediately, they were accused of anti-competitive practices, tax avoidance, and environmental negligence. In massive corporations, diffusion of responsibility means no single person feels like they're the villain. And in a world where profit is the only metric of success, it means that the right decision is the one that increases shareholder value, no matter the human cost. And nowhere is that mindset more obvious than in how ExxonMobil handled the single greatest threat to humanity it has ever faced. A threat ExxonMobil saw coming before almost anyone else. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Exxon's own scientists were quietly building some of the most accurate climate models of the era. These models predicted with uncanny precision that burning fossil fuels would lead to rising global temperatures, melting ice caps, and more extreme weather. One internal memo from 1982 warned that if we continued to burn fossil fuels, the planet could warm up by up to 5 degrees by the end of the 21st century, a level scientists all agree would be catastrophic. ExxonMobil had two choices: lead the world in transitioning away from fossil fuels or protect the business model that made them billions. And they chose to lead the world away from fossil fuels. They put profit aside and worked for the good of okay, no, actually that's exactly the opposite of what they did. They chose the second option. In the decades that followed, ExxonMobil spent millions funding climate denial groups, producing misleading educational materials, and lobbying to stall regulation. There's something called the illusion of truth effect, where if you repeat uncertainty enough times, even well-meaning people will start to believe that the science isn't settled. Every year of delay meant more carbon in the atmosphere, more deadly heat waves, more people forced from their homes by rising seas. This wasn't ignorance, it was a calculated bet that the profits of today would outweigh the suffering of tomorrow. And if you think that's bad, wait until you see what happened when their operations collided with real human lives in one of the most militarized regions on Earth. In the 1980s, Mobil Oil began extracting natural gas in Aceh in Indonesia, a region rich in natural resources but torn by separatist conflict. To secure its facilities, the company contracted the Indonesian military. Over the years, villagers accused these military units of horrific abuses: torture, killings, rape, and unlawful detention. Victims described being beaten with rifle butts, shocked with electricity. ExxonMobil denies direct involvement, but for more than 20 years the company fought lawsuits from survivors, spending millions on legal fees instead of facing a jury. In 2023, just 1 week before the trial was set to begin, ExxonMobil quietly settled. The terms were undisclosed. Inside the corporate world, this is justified through moral licensing, the belief that we brought jobs and infrastructure so the benefits outweigh the costs. And when the harm happens far away, psychological distance makes it easy for executives to look the other way. But ExxonMobil's reach isn't just about one country's suffering. In many parts of the world, it operates less like a company and more like a government. Journalist Steve Cole calls ExxonMobil a corporate state within the American state. They have their own foreign policy, their own security forces, and a network of political allies worldwide. In oil-rich nations, ExxonMobil has influenced legislation, secured tax breaks, and even shaped who stays in power. Its corporate ancestors in the Iraq Petroleum Company played a role in events leading up to the 1954 war in Oman. Proof that oil interests and armed conflicts are often intertwined. And when the world descends into crisis, from wars to economic shocks, ExxonMobil knows exactly how to turn that chaos into record-breaking profits. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the price of oil spiked. While millions of people struggled with rising energy bills, ExxonMobil posted its highest profits in history. In the second quarter alone, they earned $2,245 per second. President Biden summed it up as, Exxon made more money than God this year. Psychologists call this opportunistic moral rationalization, convincing yourself that we're just meeting the demand, while quietly celebrating the windfall that comes from human suffering. But not all of ExxonMobil's harm comes from big global events. Sometimes it's personal, written in the lives of ordinary workers. Phil Gill spent years working in a garage with barely any ventilation, and the harsh stench of benzene hanging in the air. Benzene, a chemical in petroleum products, has been known for decades to cause cancer, but ExxonMobil failed to warn him or countless other workers of the risks. They just looked the other way and hoped the worst wouldn't happen. But of course, it did. And for Gill, that belief nearly cost him his life. ExxonMobil's only obligation is to maximize shareholder value. They spend millions on lobbying, campaigning, donations, and shaping the laws meant to regulate them. And when something goes wrong, accountability is scattered so thin, no one person can be blamed. The result? Decades of preventable harm, wars, communities poisoned, a planet destabilized, and the knowledge that this will happen again unless the rules change. But will they ever change?